Vishal, let's first
Yeah,
go back to your origins. So I was reading somewhere that as a 7-year-old, you were extremely fond of cricket. You
yeah,
idolized likes of Kapil Dev and Roger Binney, who were, of course, World Cup winning heroes in the 1983 World Cup triumph for India. And then at the age of 11 is when you pivoted from cricket to tennis. So what was the reason behind that pivot to tennis?
well, actually, it was too hot to play cricket in the summer. So a couple of my friends and I in school decided we'll give tennis a shot during our school lunch break. And since I was the fastest guy in the batch, it was my responsibility to run as soon as the bell rang to the court and make sure that we said that I've reached the court first, and then all my buddies would show up and say, "Well, where's our court?" And that's how tennis started. And even then, I was very much into cricket. Growing up in India, how can you not be in cricket? Um, and somewhere down the road, I started playing more and more tennis, and just fell in love with it, and the rest is history.
Lovely. So, was there any pushback that you experienced from your parents when you were first starting out? Because your grandfather was an army veteran, your father a lawyer, your mother a doctor, right? So, when you picked sports or when you picked tennis as a career, as a profession, was there any pushback that you received?
Oh, actually, not at all. My parents and my grandfather have been the most supporting people in my life. Not for one day did they ever tell me, "What are you doing or wasting your time?" They've always supported me in everything. As a matter of fact, people used to laugh at them and make fun of them, being a lawyer and a doctor. They're letting me play a sport. But my parents have always said that it's my life, and they've supported me 100% in everything that I've wanted to achieve or pursue in life. Their only condition has been that I have to give it 100%. 99% doesn't cut it out. So with that mindset that they have, that's the mindset they've given me also in my life. And yeah, they supported me no end. They support me today also. Unfortunately, my grandfather's passed away, but yeah, I really wouldn't be who I am or where I got to without the support of my family.
But something that you did, you instead of actually putting all your eggs in one basket, you still continue to focus on academics. You of course went to the Sri Ram College of Commerce. You were great academically, but you still gave it your 120% to tennis as well. So was it hard juggling both and trying to excel on both fronts?
Yeah, I was never great at academics. I was always good. I made sure I got decent grades. Yeah, I mean that was plan B. Mom, dad had always said that you always have to have plan B, and you need to have a decent, good education to fall back on, just in case tennis doesn't work out for you. Sport, the nature of sport is such, one injury could end your career, and then what? So yeah, that backup plan was always there in mind. I was lucky enough to go to Sri Ram College of Commerce, where I got my BCom honors degree. And yeah, that's always been plan B. And it's also good to keep engaged mentally, in a different way. Of course, being a sports person, you have to be very engaged mentally in your own sport. But just to broaden your horizons a little bit always helps.
Absolutely. And now we can talk about, of course, your experience playing in the Davis Cup for India in 2000 and 2002. And I'm guessing a meat of the discussion will be focused on that. In 2000 is when you made your debut in the Davis Cup representing India, playing alongside Leander Pace. And you were phenomenal in your debut. Walk me through the experience of playing in the Davis Cup, wearing the Indian jersey and playing alongside Leander Pace.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my only dream was always to play sports for India and to try and win for India. Earlier it used to be cricket, and then it became tennis. Um, and and eventually, when I did get the call up to play for India against South Korea, that was a dream come true for me. And as luck would have it, I made my Davis Cup debut on the same court, the same stadium, against South Korea, where 9 years prior to that, I was a ball boy for that same tie, India versus South Korea. And that time, Ramesh Krishnan and Leander Paes were playing for India. And 9 years down the road, I was making my Davis Cup debut with Leander Paes, world number one at that time in doubles, alongside with me. And Ramesh Krishnan was our captain. So, in some ways, it was a pretty surreal feeling. Yeah, and, it's something I'd always dreamt of. So when I did get the call up to play the match, it was only the night before the match when Ramesh Krishnan called me to his room and asked me if I was ready to play the next day. And I just said to him, if I'm not ready today, I'll never be ready in my life. So yes, I'm ready to go. And the next day itself, in the morning before the match, Mr. Naresh Kumar, who was former Indian Davis Cup captain, who I hold in a lot of high regard, came up to me when after we finished our warm up and said, Vishal, just leave everything out there on the court. So when you walk off the court, win or lose, you can hold your head high and say you gave everything that you had. And that's exactly what I did. Of course, for me, that's the best match I've ever played in my life. Playing with Leander, of course, was an exceptional experience. And for Leander to later compliment and say that I carried him for 3 sets in that match felt pretty special. So yeah, it's an experience, it's a feeling I'll never forget in my life. And until today, I pretty much remember the whole match the way it panned out.
That's absolutely brilliant. Surreal, as you described it, is I think the appropriate word. But if that's surreal, I can't imagine what it must have felt like to win bronze 2 years later in the men's doubles in the 2002 Davis Cup. And I have a quote of yours. You described that triumph of yours, saying, "What a moment it was! I live it every day." Can you expound on that?
Yeah, look, you grow up with all these dreams that you want to play for India, you want to win medals for India. And no one expected us to win a medal at the Asian Games. Of course, Leander and Mahesh were favorites to win the doubles gold medal, which they did. And but nobody expected Mustafa and me to get anywhere close to the medal, podium. And we beat the number 2 seed, Kutsenko and Tomasevic in the quarterfinals to make sure we got a medal for India. And, that feeling was absolutely incredible. And luckily for us, since Leander and Mahesh did win the gold medal when we were standing up on the podium, the Indian national anthem was being played. And, I remember it really teared me up a little bit because, I've grown up with an army man as a grandfather who's a proud Indian. He's brought us up with the values of how to really appreciate your country and be proud for your country and do the best you can for your country. So, that moment you can never outlive a moment like that. It stays with you for the rest of your life. And yeah, every time I think about it, it makes me a little emotional. So yeah.
And the fact that you and Mustafa, of course, weren't quite favorites to win a medal in the 2002 Davis Cup, did that play to your advantage? The fact that, you guys didn't have much to lose since you guys weren't branded as favorites?
Well, I don't think it's a question of whether we didn't have much to lose or not. I know that we as a team had been doing well. We'd been combining well, and we had a very good understanding. And on any given day, we were good enough to beat some of the top teams. And more importantly, we were hungry to try and win a medal, irrespective of what the pundits might say or might have said, or the experts might have thought. We knew that if we went out on that particular day and performed and played to the best of our abilities, we can beat anyone, and even in the semifinals against the South Korean team, we played a pretty good match. We lost a close one. But we were hungry to win a medal, and luckily we were able to achieve it.
Lovely. I'd also like to touch a bit about the mental and the physical aspects of playing the game. And I have a quote of yours that I think is going to be a brilliant prelude to the discussion about this topic. You said that the game is not all about skill. How to hit a tennis ball is the easiest part. There are mental and physical aspects that need more attention.
Yeah, that's fortunately the physical awareness has come about where people are understanding the importance of becoming physically tougher. The mental part, of course, is still very, very neglected because you can have the most perfect technique and you can have a great physique. But if mentally you can't handle the pressure or you can't think on your feet, you obviously will not execute what you've learned in training. So I think the mental aspect is something that we really need to focus on. Everybody knows the way the nature of the game is and how it's evolving. It's become more and more physical. But even on that part, I think one of the big mistakes we're making is we're focusing on power too soon. I think we need to focus on speed a lot more than power. Power will eventually come for kids as they grow older, but from a very early age, if we can get them to become exceptional athletes, work on their speed, their endurance, and then when they can add power, eventually that will hold them in good stead. So, yeah, skill, hitting a tennis ball is the easiest part. I promise you, it's not rocket science. It's the easiest part. The toughest part is how you can handle things mentally, how you can think, how you can strategize, how to beat your opponent on a particular day. I think that has a far greater role than just hitting a tennis ball.
And how was it that you actually developed your mental fortitude and your mental stamina, especially when you were first starting out? I'm guessing, when you all of a sudden go from not being noticed and not being recognized to being in the spotlight to play for India, partnering alongside Leander Pace, playing the Davis Cup. How did you handle all the pressure? Because and one of the reasons I'm asking is because I know you mentioned that when you were making your debut, your coach mentioned to you that, give it your 120%, even if things don't work out, you can still leave the court with your head held up high. Virat Kohli says something similar that, what, if I give it my 120% every day, I'm answerable to no one. So even if the result doesn't quite materialize in my favor, I can still walk off the field thinking that, what, at least I gave it my best. Did you have a similar attitude? How did you build up that mental stamina?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in a household where I was treated exactly the same way, whether I won a match or I lost a match, had a lot of bearing on me. I remember as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, I used to see other kids get slapped by their parents because they lost a match. And my parents, if I won a match, they would say, well done, well played. And if I lost a match and came home, they'd say, well done, well played, never mind, try harder the next time. And that was about it. And I used to find that growing up, I'm like, that's kind of weird because, I see other kids getting slapped around. But that's the environment my parents created at home. And I remember long after I stopped playing tennis and I was doing a little bit of coaching, when I asked my parents the same question, their answer to me was very simple. They said, you're our son. We love you very much. And we know the day you've lost a match and come back home, you're already beating up on yourself for having lost. So, and if we beat up on you, then you're going to go under the ground. So our job as parents, as your support staff, is to lift you up, not to let you pull yourself down. So I think growing up with that attitude or growing up in that environment had a big positive impact on my thinking, on my way of living my life, where, losses for me were part and parcel of playing the game. I would definitely get cross with myself if on a particular day I felt I perhaps could have given it a little bit more where my effort was concerned. Yeah, of course, I did get angry with myself on those days, but the results never really bothered me as such. Yeah, there were matches I'd like to win, which I lost, which hurt. But I knew as long as I was giving it my 100% day in and day out, I was doing the right thing.
And I'm guessing this is an attitude and a philosophy that you've incorporated into your coaching style as well, right? Something that you do as a coach that I read about is that you ask your students to actually focus on academics as well, because as you said, sport can be really fickle. In the event that, God forbid, you don't end up making it, then you have like a fallback. Tell me more about this coaching endeavor of yours, especially since you went full-time as a coach ever since you quit your job at the Gas Authority of India Limited.
Yeah, coaching happened to also happened to me by accident. I really didn't want to coach in India because I think we Indians have become too used to mediocrity, and that's something that doesn't fly well with me. But it happened, and I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of good players. From the first girl I ever coached, Ambika Pandey, who won 5 ITF junior titles, or with an Adil Kalyanpur or a Tanisha Kashyap. I've had some good players come out of my my system, and it's very important to try and be well-rounded till at least a certain age, and then try and specialize into whatever you want to specialize into. Of course, tennis demands a lot of time. It demands a lot of energy. Having said that, you also have to, like I said earlier, have plan B. Tennis, you have to be a thinking person to play good tennis, because once you're on the court, you're all alone. You have to think for yourself. Nobody can coach you. Nobody can guide you. So I kind of don't like the fact that in today's day and age, coaches are too overbearing and parents are too interfering. And I think that just hampers the development of a child, because we have to allow a child to let their personality grow. We have to give them the freedom to really think on their feet, to become thinkers, to figure out how they want to do what they have to do on a court. Playing a tennis match is problem solving, and if you don't have the ability to take decisions, in your everyday life, you're not going to make smart decisions on a tennis court. So for me, allowing a child to grow as an individual is very important for their success on a tennis court. So for me, I think an overall development of a child really helps them, become better tennis players.
And what are some of the ways in which you actually incorporate this into your coaching style? I'm guessing you would probably refrain from micromanaging. You would probably not make decisions on behalf of your students, and perhaps give them thinking points, but not quite give them what the exact solution is that you have in your mind, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if I start giving them solutions straight off the mat, then they're never going to think for themselves. So my coaching style always is to ask them rather than tell them. If a particular situation arises, I ask them what they think about it, what their solution would be to it. So at least it engages them. It forces them to think, hey, what can I do in this particular situation? And whatever their answers are, I always encourage them, give answers. I don't know is not an answer. That's just not an answer. Think, it may be the right answer, it may be the wrong answer. But if it's the right answer, you know that you're thinking correctly. If it's the wrong answer, well, you'll just learn something new. So that the hunger to learn has to be kept alive. I think too many kids are just being given information and they're just using it like robots. So you'll see now in sports, every time a child makes a mistake, they're going to look at either their coach or their parent, whoever's watching the match. And I think that's utter rubbish, because a child has to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. They have to learn how to think for themselves, and they have to go out there and compete by themselves. And in order for us to help them through that, we need to encourage them to become thinkers. They need to really figure out what they want to do, how they want to do it, and learn to make decisions. Very important. Every shot that you hit in tennis is a decision you make in a split second, whether it's a forehand or a backhand or a serve or a volley. Everything is a decision. So you might as well get, into making decisions in all aspects of your life, just to help you get better at decision making.
And this is a practice and a principle that I learned through my experience on Wall Street when I was working in finance. In finance, they say no risk, no reward. When you're actually completely hedging yourself, and completely hedging yourself means when you're not making a decision, then you're taking absolutely no risk. And when you're taking no risk, you deserve no reward either. And so I think the worst thing that you can do is not making a decision at all, because even if you make a decision and it ends up being wrong, you learn new information as a result of you having made the decision that can help you when you're making decisions in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to look. Nobody's going to get it right 100% of times. But if for example, like if I take a tennis analogy, I keep telling the kids that if you're standing in the same position for 2 shots in a row, you're in the wrong position, because the ball is always moving. So you have to keep moving with the ball. You just can't be in the same positions. That's exactly what you just said. If you take no decisions, you'll never learn. So taking the decision is the most critical part. And the other part, I think, which is very ignored, is the fact that for me, making an error is not the important thing. How you deal with making that error, that's the important thing. If you can pick yourself up and again try and give it your best, you're doing fine, because you will make errors. Nothing on planet Earth is going to stop you from making errors. You will make errors. So might as well learn how to deal with them in a much better fashion, so that you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back right into it.
Exactly. I read this quote yesterday. I was reading a book by Tim Ferriss, and he talked about how adversity doesn't build character; it reveals your character. And that's exactly what you said.
That you said adversity. I say that for sport. That we've always heard that sport builds character. I think that's the second half of the first. The first half of it is that sport reveals character, because you're dealing with the 2 imposters, failure and success, every split second. You're facing them, you're dealing with them. So it will reveal your character, and then the pursuit of sport will definitely help you build on your character. Because it will teach you things. Sport teaches you about life. Books will teach you about things in life, but sport will teach you about life itself. So I think the best educator in life is sport, because it will teach you, it'll help you grow in ways you've never imagined, and it'll help you deal with pressure, expectations, failure, success, everything.
And I'm going to use a cricket analogy again. I, just like you, am a massive cricket fan, a massive Virat Kohli fan as well. And Virat Kohli talked about, exactly what you said, that in many ways, Test cricket is synonymous with life. It's very similar to life. It's like life playing out in 5 days, because he talks about how, you can go from being an absolute hero in one session, right, to being a complete zero in the other session, and life that was also very fickle. But it's not just about how you simply ride the wave of successes. It's also about, okay, when you come crashing down, how do you still plan and plot and strategize such that you can one up your opponent in the next session, or you can still stay in the game, as opposed to just calling it quits and throwing in the towel.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do is quit. That's the easiest thing to do, but that's not what defines champions. Champions will continue trying, they will continue working hard, they'll pick themselves, they'll dust themselves off. When the going is tough for them, they won't give in. They will fight harder, they will work harder, they will try and get themselves back to where they were. And that will only happen with a never say die attitude. If you beat up on yourself, if you get down on yourself, if you start drooping your shoulders, bowing your head, you're not going to really come back, and you're not going to achieve anything. So I think the biggest thing you can do is always to back yourself, to trust yourself. The most important thing for any athlete in life to do is to learn how to trust themselves, because confidence is only a byproduct of trust. If you trust yourself, your confidence will always be there. You may not be playing that great at that time, but your confidence in your own ability to bounce back will always be there. So I think the most important thing for me that we need to really focus on is learning how to trust ourselves. Confidence will come, it'll go, but trust, if it's there, you'll be fine.
And Vishal, something I'm curious to know. You mentioned trust yourself. I think something that goes hand in hand with trust is self-belief that you have. And when I look at some of these athletes, right, not just people in tennis, not just people who made it big in tennis, but others as well. Say if I look at someone like a Conor McGregor, right, slightly eccentric, but tremendous amount of self-belief, right? Same with Virat Kohli. Someone like a Sergio Ramos as well, right? Not everyone likes him, but at the same time, he knows that regardless of what the outside world says, he will still have this immense never say die attitude. It's almost as if like he's wearing this cloak of invulnerability, that what, you can put as much pressure on me as possible. The Bernabeu might be like booing him while he's playing, but he'll still give it his 120%, right? So how do top level athletes and elite performers end up building that self-belief that protects them during the adverse times?
If you're doing an activity without passion, there's no fun doing that. So if you look at any and every top athlete, they are extremely passionate about what they do. They're extremely hungry to go out there and give it their best day in and day out. I was reading about Tiger Woods, and one of the things they say about Tiger Woods is that people will turn it on and turn it off. Tiger Woods never turned it off. No matter whether he was playing well or he was playing badly, he would go out there and give it his best. And I think it's a mindset which, from an early age, if you can get into that mindset and keep practicing that mindset day in and day out, it will hold you in good stead in the long run. Like I said, people want to work on their forehands and backhands and serves and volleys, but they don't want to work on their mindset. They don't want to work on their mentality. They don't want to work on their attitude. And I think these are the things which are more defining than the quality of your strokes. So I think some people are inbuilt. They're just born with that natural ability to be those fighters, those survivors. But I think other people can learn those skills. That mental aspect, and it's not very tough. Truth be told, it's not very tough. You just have to get more in touch with yourself to understand what your desires are, what your passions are, what your dreams are, and then have the ability to chase them to the best of your own ability. So I think people really need to focus on their mentality. They need to look at what the fire burning in their belly is all about. So I think if you look at all these athletes, all the top athletes, guys who made it, even a lot of guys who could never make it, they've had a burning desire in them. One of the best movies I've ever seen about that is Rocky IV. When Stallone has to get ready for that battle with the Russian boxer. And I mean, things like that, they define human spirit, they define human character.
And I think you put it beautifully when you said you have to practice that mindset, because I think a lot of people might be under the impression that, you know what, you're either born with it or you're not. So it's binary, it's 0 or 1. And if I'm not born with it, you know what, bad luck. But I think over time, if you're practicing that mindset every single day, then you start living that mindset. You start
Yes.
becoming, you know how a lot of people say fake it till you make it. Like in
Yeah.
many ways, you can fake it till you become it, or you can practice it till you become it. And then it becomes second nature to you. So initially, you might feel as if, you know what, if someone says something, I get rattled, and so people can affect me easily. So I'm like the nail that, you know what, people can step on me, but instead of being the nail, you end up becoming the hammer. You know what, I have it within me to actually make a big impact, as opposed to becoming exploitable and being easily rattled whenever, you know, there's someone who comes around with a hammer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you don't even have to fake it. As long as you're just being true and honest with yourself, you have to understand that being ruthlessly honest with yourself is one of the most defining things you can do for yourself in life. And that is one thing that will really help you become stronger and really help you go up in life, because you may not be giving it 100% on a particular day, but have the honesty, the courage to tell yourself that. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to lie to yourself. You don't have to do anything. You have to be brutally honest with yourself, and that is what will help you grow. There's no point in hiding. There's no point in faking anything, because you have to understand your power comes from within. Nobody else can give you the power. And you have to go within to try and lift yourself up, to build yourself up, and to that purpose, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. That is the starting point. When you can be honest with yourself, and when you can understand and recognize where you're going wrong, that's when you start fixing it. A lot of people, to protect themselves, will say, "Oh no, but I didn't do anything wrong." But that's not the right attitude. You have to look at what happened, and you may not have done something wrong. That might be the case, but you at least have to be honest with yourself. So I think for growth to happen, if we can be brutally honest with ourselves day in and day out, no matter how much it may hurt our ego, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves, and that is one of the biggest stepping stones for us.
Brilliant. And only then I feel can you take, corrective action, rectification, because awareness in many ways is the precursor to action. And only when you're aware of
Yep.
exactly what your idiosyncrasies are, your faults are, what your strengths are as well, can you actually, make sure that that you're playing to your strengths.
Yep. And you'll see that a lot of kids now, right after they lose a match, their defense will be, "Well, I didn't do anything wrong," or "My opponent just played great," or "Oh, my forehand wasn't coming," or "My backhand wasn't coming." And it's almost like an excuse instead of looking at what really went on. So I would say stop making excuses, because everything you do is a learning experience. It's a learning curve. If you make excuses, you will not learn. If you look at what happened, what transpired, and really try and figure out what went on, you will learn and you will grow. But if you try and sidestep it, sorry, no growth will happen.
Lovely. Let's talk a bit more about the game as well. Of course, the game has evolved a lot ever since you started out playing. I read somewhere that you mentioned, and of course, this is true. This is something that everyone can see. Back in the day, of course, you didn't have as many tennis facilities. The infrastructure wasn't as good. But now, at every corner, you have a tennis facility, especially in the bigger cities, right? So infrastructure-wise, we're doing much better, and lots of athletes are actually emerging from India. Any athletes in particular that you think would be hot prospects and would have the ability and the potential to do great things for India?
In tennis, just in tennis,
Tennis,
or
tennis,
otherwise?
in tennis, and perhaps otherwise as well. After you've
Okay,
answered
so just for the starting with the tennis scene, I think the tennis scene has gotten a lot better. We've definitely, there's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more access to playing tennis now. Like you said, there are tennis courts coming up in every nook and corner, and that also is a good thing and not such a good thing. And the reason I say it's not such a good thing is also because too many quacks have got into the system. Too many people who have no clue about tennis as a sport are now teaching the sport, which I think is very dangerous. So little knowledge is dangerous, and very little knowledge is very dangerous. And unfortunately for India, I'd say at least 90% of our coaches are quacks. They have very little knowledge, and that in itself is a counterproductive activity for us. But Having said that, you'll see a child's natural ability can take over, and from even the worst systems, they can come through and make a name for themselves. So I think for me, like I keep telling my coaching staff also, the number one rule of coaching has to be do no harm. If you do no harm, then a child's natural ability will start coming to the fore. So that has to be the precursor to coaching. So and where our talent is concerned, we have a lot of good kids. Prajnesh is doing well. Ram is working really hard. Sumit is doing well. Sasi Kumar Mukund is doing well. We have a lot of youngsters in the pipeline. Siddhant Bantia, Adil Kalyanpur. There's a lot of good stuff happening on the women's side. Our Fed Cup team, we just qualified for the World Group playoff for the first time in our history, which was a big defining moment for women's tennis in India. Ankita, Rutuja, Karman, who was injured. We have a lot of good talent. Ria, a lot of good juniors coming through, and with Sanya coming back into the team. It's been a lot of good positive things happening for Indian tennis. So I see a lot of good talent, a lot of good people around, a lot of good people who are working very hard all around. I think if we can find ways of supporting our players in any and every which way that we can, I think our results are only going to get better.
That's brilliant. And of course, things don't change overnight. It's a process. And while things have trended positively for quite some time, I'm guessing there still might be a few challenges, a few impediments in Indian tennis. One of the challenges that you mentioned is there are lots of quacks in the system who might be, contaminating the style of some of the emerging players. Any other big challenges or impediments that you see right now that we still have to encounter and face and defeat?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things we really need to do to try and help Indian tennis grow. I think we need to have more visionaries supporting the sport. If you look at it, we hardly have any corporate support, which is really sad because this is something that's been going on for years and years. It's been going on when I was playing. It was happening before me, and it still continues to hamper us. We're so we've got a herd mentality. If we do something good, then everybody wants to follow that path. You don't want to support anything else. And I think tennis, a lot of good talent in tennis goes begging because there is not enough support for our players. I think what we really need to do is we need to really do a lot of international ranking tournaments in India so that Indians get started in the world ranking, so that they have the courage and the basically the bandwidth to venture out and play abroad also. We need a lot more corporate support. We need some government support coming in. We basically need funding for every good product to become successful. You need to fund it. So we can have a player with great raw material, great athlete, great mentality, lots of hunger, working day in and day out. Without funding is zero. So I think one of the biggest areas we're lacking is good funding utilized in the right manner. Quite for the longest time, we've supported one or two kids, and we've put so much pressure on them to really make it big that they've fallen by the wayside. I think we should be supporting 100 kids, and if out of those 100, 2 can come out, then those 2 will help another 500. So that way you grow the pool. So I think corporate funding or funding from whatever source has to be there. I think one of the other things that has to happen is that the tennis community has to come together also. We've been quite fragmented for a while, and everybody has to come together and work together towards a common goal of growing the sport in our country. So yeah, I think if we can sort these 2 things out, we'll see tennis grow quite a lot in India.
There's definitely great constructive feedback and definitely an appeal to like all the patrons out there, who have the financial wherewithal, but might be slightly hesitant to invest in a game like tennis.
Yeah, I think people just need to have a vision, because for truth be told, I can't remember who sponsored the last cricket series or who was sponsoring. It's such a blind spot. And tennis is a sport which is a low-hanging fruit right now, which can really help you come onto the scene as a corporate. It can get you good visibility, and you just have to have the vision to understand that. You have to be able to see it, and I think And I think if we can get people to support tennis in a big way in our country, I think tennis will really, really grow as a sport quite fast.
Lovely. And a lot of people know about Vishal, the player, Vishal, the coach. If I may ask, what do you like doing in your free time when you're not coaching and say when you're not spending time with your family?
Well, I love music. I used to sing back in the day, and now I'm, pata hole, as they say. I love watching movies or documentaries on human stories.
So you spoke about how you've been biding your time until the end of the lockdown. Any message that you would like to convey to others who might be restless right now, who might not know exactly what to do? How should they be playing it safe? How can they actually best make use of the free time or the extra time that they have on their hands right now?
Yeah, the lockdown obviously has been tough for everyone. I mean, human beings are not used to just sitting in one place now. But I think it's a very good thing for human race. I think it's going to slow us down. I think it's going to put a lot of things in perspective for us. And there is so much to do in life. You can get to know yourself better. You have so much time to spend with yourself. Get to know yourself better. What ticks you? What inspires you? There's so much to learn about yourself. And you have so much time to yourself right now. You can really pursue a hobby, something that you've been putting off. It could be picking up an instrument. It could be picking up a book. It could be anything. This is a time for you to spend with yourself, get to know yourself better, and really to understand what you're passionate about in life. So I think it's a great growth opportunity for all of us. Every growth in life is not just monetary. There is a spiritual growth to us also. And I think if we can invest this time in ourselves, and I think we'll all come out as winners after this lockdown is over. We'll lead a much better, much healthier life, mentally at least. And yeah, people are doing all sorts of things now, man. They're getting into cooking, something they've never gotten into. They're getting into fitness they never got into. So this is a great opportunity for people to invest time in themselves and just be with themselves. And so I think, yeah, while it's been tough in many ways, I think it's also given us a opportunity to press the reset button for us to really focus on ourselves. And it's helped us also connect with so many people. In day-to-day life, you don't really connect with friends, and now you're all connecting with friends and reminiscing the good times in life. And so yeah, I think in some ways this has been a good break for humanity.
So thanks a lot for being very comprehensive.
Thank you for having me.
And at the same time being very articulate as well in explaining your beliefs and your philosophies.
Thank you for having me. Lovely chatting with you, and all the very best.